Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Massey College Music Club event. My name is Hannah Chen Hartley. I'm a musicologist, a Quadrangle Society member, and one of the members of the Music Club's programming committee. And as we all know, these have been strange and challenging times, and while for now we can't gather together in person the way we have done before, we're excited to be able to present this event virtually to everyone. Before I introduce tonight's guest, I just briefly want to tell you about the Music Club, if you're not already familiar with what it's about or would like a refresher. The Music Club meets after dinner twice each term to explore the creation and performance of music across different cultures and in different times. Programming is decided by a committee of junior and senior fellows, alumni, and Quadrangle Society members. It is eclectic and varied, and is intended to be both entertaining and enlightening. For this fall term, we have tonight's event, and the next event will be on November 3rd with Canadian hip-hop music specialist and award-winning journalist Dalton Higgins. So tonight, I'm delighted to welcome virtuoso accordionist Michael Bridge, who is an alumnus of Massey College and is the first Canadian to pursue a doctoral degree in accordion performance from the University of Toronto. He is renowned for cutting-edge concert productions, including with his two ensembles of unique instrumentation, La Dome Ensemble and Bridge and Wallach. He has appeared as a solo artist with orchestras, including the Boston Pops, Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, and the Witold Lutoslawski Chamber Philharmonic, and performed across Europe, the USA, and in every Canadian province. Passionate about Baroque, jazz, contemporary, and world music, he performs over 100 concerts per year and has given over 50 world premieres. Now tonight, as Michael gives his presentation, we'd love to take questions throughout. And so on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a YouTube chat function where you can input your questions. And when a moment is right, we can relay them to Michael and he can answer those. So without further ado, here's Michael Bridge with Behind the Bellows, the Twisted History of the Accordion and Where It's Going. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you very much to Massey College and the Music Club for having me. I am delighted to be a part of this evening's event, and I want to welcome you to my lair. My accordion lair is here all set up around me, and tonight is all about the accordion, but I'm going to try to tell a little bit about how the accordion works and where it's come from historically and where it's going, but I don't want to be too serious about it. So I'm going to try to work in as many interesting anecdotes as I can along the way. So I just want to say Massey College is a very special place to me. I actually lived there for 3 years, and I was a non-resident junior fellow for a year afterwards. So it's really special to me to be back and to be doing an event for the Music Club committee, on which I did serve for a couple of years. So thank you for having me. So let's jump in. I think undeniably one of the most interesting things about the history of the accordion is how quickly it spread. It's like a weed. Our instrument was invented in 1829. So we are less than 200 years old. So the fact that accordion has now spread to every corner of the map, and I mean like almost every country, it's all over Europe. It's a symbol of folk culture in China, in Russia, New Zealand, Argentina, Brazil, the Balkans, Bosnia, Serbia, in Africa. I've played an accordion from Zimbabwe, South Africa. It is, and of course, North America here too. It's truly an international instrument, but yet it's quite young compared to instruments like the piano or violin that have had much longer to establish themselves. So I want to just paint a little picture around 1829. Beethoven died 2 years prior to that in 1827. So for all you music buffs listening tonight, of course, Beethoven's death marked, we say in music history, the end of the classical era and led into the so-called Romantic era. And Symphonie Fantastique by Hector Berlioz, one of my very favorite pieces of all time, was composed in 1830, just the year after the accordion was patented. So Beethoven died in Vienna, and the accordion was patented there 2 years later. So it's very actually close, but yet extremely far, because he didn't know of the accordion and wrote absolutely, very little that would be appropriate to performance on the accordion. However, there were other instruments that were being developed at the same time. And I would like to paint a fairly complicated and confusing picture of how accordion had its origins, because it's not as simple as one might think. We often view instrument invention as sort of a historical linear progression. Like if you think about the keyboard or the piano, we think of, okay, well, we had the harpsichord and clavichord, and then, we put hammers on it, and then we got to the piano. But there were many twists and turns. There are a lot of pianos out there that don't have a piano keyboard on it. There are plenty of other ways that you can arrange the notes and still put it on a piano action. In accordion's case, there were many simultaneous inventions. So there was the one called accordion, which looked nothing like any of the instruments around me today. But I will show you what it did look like. And then we had something called the bandoneon a few years later in the 1840s in Germany. And contemporaneously with the accordion, we had the invention of the concertina. It apparently happened in two separate places. It was developed separately in 1829 in England and in 1834 in Germany. And apparently they didn't talk. Who knows about that? But instrument development was not seen to have an eventual goal of getting to one of these instruments. Today, it was simply a matter of trying to make an instrument that was practical to play on and that was adaptable to the human body and to the music of the time that people wanted to play. So there was a lot of stealing from other inventors on the one hand, or borrowing, I should maybe say, and then a lot of trial and error and experimentation. And there are literally hundreds and hundreds of designs of accordions that have been tried over the years, some more successful than not, that led to where we are today. So may I ask for the first slide to go up on the screen? There we go. So here you see, now we're going much further back. This is not from the 1800s. This actually dates back 3,000 years. The instrument on the left, the sheng, comes from China. This is a modern sheng, but there is evidence of sheng instruments from 3,100 years ago, 1,100 years before Common Era. In the center, you see a similar instrument from Japan, the sho, and on the right, you see the Korean sangwang, in the hands of a modern virtuoso. This is a friend of mine, Gamin is her stage name. She's from Korea and specializes in the performance on historical Korean instruments. And we had a piece written for us, blending accordion and sangwang. And this was actually a wonderful way to pay tribute to the accordion's roots, because all three of these instruments have the first example of what is called the free vibrating reed, which means a metal reed that vibrates back and forth when air is passed over it, and that leads to the production of sound on all of these instruments. By the 1740s, it had arrived in Europe, the instruments you're seeing before you here, and it didn't take very long for European musicians and inventors to start figuring out how to incorporate those principles into instruments that they wanted to make for their music. So this ties closely with the history of the regale, which was a very, very early version of the organ, so to speak, sort of a desk version of an accordion, if you will. And that led into the harmonium. So if we could look at the next slide, in the 1780s, the instrument on the left, the harmonium, has its origins, and there are two pedals that you pump with your feet. on this harmonium, and each pedal is on its own set of bellows. So the key here is that the player is able to sustain sound indefinitely, because as you push down with your right foot, you can be lifting up with your left, and vice versa. And you can sustain sound for a very, well, maybe too long. You can see at the top center the unidirectional reeds of a harmonium. Now, on all of those little sort of oval type areas, there is a cutout in the center, and there is a metal reed fixed at one end. And when air is pushed through the valve, it activates the metal reed and makes it basically shake and vibrate back and forth. And that's what makes the sound. So on harmonium, the sound only ever crosses over the reed plate in one direction. This is not so with the accordion. You can see at the bottom center one of the very, very first accordions. This is from the 1830s, and that is more or less what Cyril Damien's accordion, patented the year before, looked like. It was only for one hand. There were no buttons on the other hand, and I say the other hand because most people believe now that this accordion was meant to be played with the right hand activating the keys and the left hand operating the bellows. In fact, it was the opposite, based on the evidence that we have. The left hand selected which note would be played, those keys that you can see, and the right hand was operating the bellows, much like how on violin, the left hand blocks the strings to select which note will be played, while the right hand is taking care of the expression and the bowing. So finally there, you can see that I have, that's actually one of my own reeds from the accordion behind me, and that's a double unidirectional reed. So the reed that you can see on the right of the reed plate is for when the bellows are opening, and through that little opening on the other side, it looks the same, it's a mirror. There's another identical reed of the same pitch, and there are leathers on both sides that block the airflow so that each way is one way. But when you do tune the reeds, it actually has to be done both ways. So I'm now going to just transition to a little bit more info about accordion, and then we'll get on to some stories. I want to show you an incredible graphic depiction of an accordion. We're going to roll the first video, and this comes from a tour I did last summer in California. I was at the NAMM Museum of Making Music. NAMM is the biggest music convention in the world. It brings together all the manufacturers of musical instruments, all the publishers, all the everybody gets together at NAMM in the US. And they have a museum as a branch out from NAMM, and they featured an accordion exhibit for 9 months last year. I was very happy to be a major part of that, and it finished by me actually going there and doing a concert at the museum. And I'd like to show you a little part of the exhibit and sort of explain a little bit more about the inner workings of the accordion.
Hello everybody, it's Michael Bridge at the NAMM Museum of Making Music here in Carlsbad in California, and I had a concert today and just finished a few minutes ago. But before leaving, I wanted to show you this really cool exploded accordion and to show some of the parts of the inside of an accordion in case you haven't seen them before. So in no particular order, let's start with the bellows, which are really the heart of the accordion. This is made from cardboard, most of all, a special type of cardboard, and then bellows tape along the edge, all clamped together with a metal corner. But it's really flexible and sort of flimsy when you think about it, that I literally just played a 2-hour concert on cardboard. That's a really weird thought, actually. Then attached to that on both sides, you have the 2 manuals. Here, the bass section of this accordion, which all the buttons have been taken out of. They're over there on the wall. The bass machine was removed. And these would typically be vertical inside here. And when you push on a button, you can see that there are little pegs in different places based on which button it is, and that activates different rods on the inside like this, and that activates all the sounds. So if you look over here, this is very cool inside because the reed blocks are here on the wall, they've been removed. If I push on these registers, then you actually see the valves, or these plates that block the valves, sliding in and out, and that enables you to select which reeds are going to sound on the accordion. Now, the reeds themselves are on a steel plate, and the reeds, they're often made from Swedish blue steel. Different manufacturers use different materials, and they're mounted, in this case, with beeswax. So if you leave the accordion in the trunk above about 30 Celsius, you're risking melting your accordion. Also, in theory, I think you should probably declare that at customs, but I never have. And over here on the right hand, it's working much the same. One more thing about the reeds that's very interesting is these are what we call unidirectional reeds, because there's one reed here, the one that you can see, that is played when the bellows are being closed and air is pushing out. There's another identical reed below this leather here on the opposite side of this panel that's identical, that plays the same pitch, and that is for when air is being pushed into the bellows, so when you're opening the bellows. Now, that means that for every note you actually have two different reeds at the same pitch, which means when you tune it, you have to tune two reeds and hope to get them in tune. Not many people know that there are actually bidirectional reeds. They were developed as early as the 1950s, extremely rare in accordion manufacturing, but I have played on a fully bidirectional reed instrument, and it sounds great. And I've only ever come across one that's at another museum, the World of Accordions Museum in Superior, Wisconsin. And I don't know exactly why that's not used in accordion manufacturing. I think it's a little harder to tune because it's harder to get at the reed. So that gives you an overview of what an accordion looks like on the inside. There can be up to 430 reeds inside. That's how many mine has, a fully sized instrument, concert instrument. And there can be as many moving parts as a grand piano. So it's a remarkable instrument. It's amazing that it holds together. And I hope that you enjoyed this little tour of the exploded accordion. Again, I'm Michael Bridge. Thank you so much for listening.
There we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Massey College Music Club event. Just a reminder that we'd love to take questions throughout the presentation, and you can send us your questions through the YouTube chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. And as they come in, when there's a moment, we will answer them, and I'll relay them to Michael, and he will expand on his presentation. So thank you. Over to you, Michael.
Basically, I want for everyone watching tonight to be the voices in my head. If you've ever wanted to be like the voice whispering in my ear, this is your chance. I'll hear you through here. You won't hear the questions, but somebody from the production team will be telling me. By the way, I just want to say thank you to Massey College production team for doing an amazing job. There are quite a few people working behind the scenes that you can't see who are making this possible. Matt, Abra, thank you. So I'd like to continue now with coming into the 20th century and bringing it to North America. We've sort of looked at how accordions are made, at least in principle, or how acoustic instruments like this one, my main baby, my acoustic concert accordion, is made. This one's entirely different. That one's digital. It's a computer, and we'll get to that before this evening is up. But I'd like to rewind to the early 1900s. It is around the year 1907 that two amazing and pioneering Italian brothers first stepped foot on North American soil. They were called the Diero brothers, Guido and his younger brother Pietro Diero. Guido, Count Guido, to be specific, he was a count, a title from Italy that he was hereditary, and he didn't use it in his professional life, but he was a count. And they were part of a movement that blossomed quickly and around them to put a piano keyboard on an accordion and to make it super popular. Now, they did not invent the piano keyboard. It had been done much sooner in Europe. However, it hadn't really caught on, and there were various button layouts, including the one behind me right here, that were prominent on accordions. And the piano keyboarded accordion flourished in their hands. Guido Diro, the older brother, became a vaudeville star and toured all over the place, kind of like what my life was pre-COVID, and except I think even more. I used to be on tour for about 150 days a year, and I think he was probably about 400 or 500 or 600 days a year. Some crazy amount of touring. So he became a superstar, and in fact, I've heard from several sources that Guido Diro was the highest paid vaudeville soloist ever. He was earning in the realm of $600, $700 a week, which I did a quick search to see what that would be in today's money. That would be about $8,000 a week. So yeah, not bad for playing a variety show on accordion. And by the way, he didn't even play the whole concert. He was just like the one person in the variety act. So this became extremely popular, and vaudeville acts toured all over the place, and it was the biggest thing. It was like the musical circus that came to town. Then what happened was radio, and radio changed everything about how touring could be done, because all of a sudden you could broadcast. You didn't have to physically go there. And radio became growing popularity throughout first starting in the 20s, when it was really starting to become accessible, and also recordings started to become a major factor, maybe not so much in the 20s, but in the decades that followed. Certainly recording technology and the availability of records allowed people to become really superstars and to reach huge numbers of audiences. So this huge growth in accordion through vaudeville blossomed into the 1930s through the founding of several organizations. In the US in 1934, a group was created called the American Accordionists Association, AAA. And in the year following, in 1935, this is one of the best things about accordion. Our global governing body is called the CIA, the Confédération Internationale des Accordéonistes. And they were founded in Paris in 1935. So we do have an accordion CIA. These groups were quickly became pedagogical and business-like in nature. And there was a huge number of students that wanted to take up accordion. In fact, in 1938 and 1939, the accordion was the fastest growing musical instrument in America, which is quite remarkable. This was also true in Europe. It wasn't just with American-made, American-sold instruments. In fact, many of the instruments sold in the US were coming from Europe, from Italy, from Castelfidardo, and also from Hohner in Trossingen, Germany. The Hohner factory, which is perhaps more famous for its harmonicas, but was very famous at that time and already well established, and is the only factory, to my knowledge, that did not get repurposed in some way, usually for munitions, in World War II in Germany. It was the only factory that the regime said, keep doing what you're doing. And on 2 occasions, the Hohner factory made harmonicas that were delivered to soldiers as a Christmas gift. First in the American Civil War, and then in World War II. I believe it was in 1942, if memory serves. So it was an incredible presence to still have a musical instrument maker who was seen to be important by the Nazi regime at that time. That's quite a significant event. So the growth of the instrument also led to demand for education, and this is where I think things took a slightly dark turn in the history of the accordion. In a nutshell, I believe that business growth started to vastly outpace artistic growth on the instrument. We had door-to-door salespeople in Ontario, in Virginia, and in California. I know of those three places. I believe more existed. From the late 30s into the 50s into the early 60s, there were many musical instructors who were on the payroll with manufacturers and salespeople that would go door to door and say, hey, your son or daughter should really have a bright future. And in order to do that, they should buy an accordion. Well, my son or daughter is only 5 years old. No problem. We have a small accordion for them. So they sell them the small accordion. Then the musical teacher who was on the payroll of the manufacturer getting commission, a year later said, dear sir or madam, your child is doing incredibly well. However, what they really need is a bigger instrument. This one is just too small. It doesn't have enough notes. Sell them another instrument. 2 years later, same thing. 2 years later, same thing. And this was true for me when I started on accordion at age 5. I started on one with 2 octaves on the right hand and 12 buttons on the left. It was absolutely tiny. Still have it. My mama has it. And that instrument lasted me for about a year, and then I needed a bigger one, and then a bigger one, and a bigger one. And I'm probably on about my 10th main instrument by now over the years. So this was a huge opportunity to sell a lot of instruments to students. And by the year 1960, many accordionists may be surprised, flabbergasted, to find out that there were over 20 degree-granting programs for post-secondary education on accordion. 20 colleges in the US that offered degrees in accordion by 1960. 20 that I know of. There could be more. That's not to say that they were all busy. Some of them were, I've heard from various sources, didn't turn out very many students. It was more an on-paper thing, but just the fact that this was available is remarkable, given that by now, today, there, until very recently, there was only one accordion program in North America, the one where I have been studying for the last 10 years at the accordion program at the University of Toronto. So they did grow tremendously in popularity. However, there are a few events that led to the decline of the golden era of the accordion. And it was not any one event. Some people like to point a finger at a very famous accordionist who in 1951, by the name of Dick Contino, super famous, and he draft dodged for the Korean War. And he was sentenced to serve 6 months, which he did, and his career was then in tatters. And he was like the #1 accordionist at the time on the Ed Sullivan Show, on the Horace Heidt Show. It was like being on Ellen or being on at one of the late night shows as an accordionist, and he was a heartthrob and a good-looking guy. And because he draft dodged, he unfortunately was sacrificed, made an example of. And various ad campaigns were run to say, don't be like him, be cool and serve your country. And accordion got a really bad rap for that reason, briefly. But as I said before, I think that is, it would be completely incorrect. And by the way, Dick Contino did get a presidential pardon years later, and he did serve honorably in the military years later. And many people leave out that part of the story. So I don't want to point a finger at anything. I believe that it was business growth that outpaced artistic growth on the accordion that led to the ebb or the downward turn by the end of the 1960s. However, there was at that time an undercurrent of professional accordionists, of really great artists that had started years earlier and that were looking at establishing accordion as a really serious concert instrument. And I'd like to get into that next, but with all these various crazy stories about accordion history, the weird and wonderful dimensions of how it played out. Hannah, do you have, I think you mentioned earlier, and I haven't heard it yet, you said you had a crazy accordion story. Everyone does. So while I get this on, is there something you would share?
I don't think it's that crazy, only that I was very surprised when I was a young girl poking around. I grew up in Calgary. I was poking around the basement and found out that we actually had an accordion in our house. And
everywhere.
And I had no idea that one existed. And I found out that my dad had actually wanted to learn how to play at some point. And he had bought an accordion, and he said that he attempted to take some lessons, but never got very far. But I did take it out when I was a little bit older. It's a full, large-sized accordion, and I did play around with it. But I had no idea we even owned one of these, and there it was.
Well, to everyone watching tonight, you never know where we are, so you might want to, go check your basement or your attic and check. So many people come to me with these stories. I would say about twice or three times a week, I get a message through Facebook of somebody sending me pictures of an accordion that they just discovered that they had, and they say, "What's this worth?" or "What do I do with it?" And they're usually 1960s vintage, sometimes in very good condition though. So you never know. Look under your floorboards. You might be rich. So I have on me now my main acoustic instrument, and I just want to show you a little bit about how this instrument works and how it's laid out and what makes it a concert accordion. So basically now marks the midway point in the presentation. I'm sorry if the first half was a little heavy on history, but I did want to set that all up. The rest of today's presentation, I'm going to talk about some music, play some music, roll a few videos, and also show you how this instrument works and what it can do and where it's going. So the defining feature of a concert accordion is called free bass. Most accordions only have what is called stradella bass, which is what I'm about to show you now. That familiar bass chord, bass chord. You can play a waltz, you can play a march with it. And it's really easy to play. Anyone can do the patterns that I just did on an accordion. It only takes a couple fingers, and you can play a bass line and a chord with just one finger, because all these chords, they're preset. I can play an entire chord with one finger. So that means that you can accompany yourself really easily. It also means that the complexity of the accompaniment that you can do is very limited. You can't invert a chord. You can't do this. You can't play a multi-octave scale. You cannot do this. If I do it on, as I said, it's called stradella bass, it will sound like this. And no matter how long I play, it won't get higher. It's extremely frustrating. And being confined to only one octave of range limits what you can do tremendously. So in addition to stradella bass, which I just explained, my accordion has something called free bass. And when I push this converter switch, Then I have, instead of those preset chords, I have a system of individual notes on the left hand that goes from very low to very, very high. That, by the way, I don't know if this is coming through on the stream, if you can even hear that note. That's a C sharp, and it is one note higher than the top note on the piano. I win, but I'm not competing. So this accordion has a huge range because of that on both hands, which means that it's possible to play Baroque music. It's possible to play contemporary music. It means you can play all sorts of genres on accordion, and it's super fun to play. It's hard to play. It's definitely harder than the other system of preset chords, but with more complexity comes more rewards. So I would like to now have Matt roll for you a video that came from my doctoral recital last January, one of my most recent live performances. And this piece is written by the Brazilian Spanish composer Edson Zamprona. And a few years ago, in 2018, I worked with the Canadian Music Centre here in Toronto to put out a call for scores for new works for accordion, anything that had been written in the last 5 years. And the prize to the people who submitted the best works was that I would play them all in one concert. And I was hoping that we would get enough pieces, to fill out a concert, and maybe to have a few extras so I could choose. So 6 or 7 pieces I was hoping for. We got 53 from 23 different countries submitted. I was absolutely floored and unprepared for how much time it was going to take for myself and a few other individuals to go through them and to make decisions as to what I could play in an hour physically. So we were floored. I know I'm skipping ahead, but contemporary accordion is alive and well, and I'd like you to hear a little bit of what I do right now. So here it is. It's called trazo, which means stroke, like the stroke of a paintbrush. And there are all sorts of stroke-like gestures. You'll hear many things like that, like a paintbrush going again and again and again. So here it is by Edson Zamprona, Trazo. takes me back. I have to say, as a career performer, I do miss being on stage, but I'm actually getting to enjoy a lot of opportunities to do not only virtual events like this one, but also some pre-recorded concerts. And I've been doing some virtual tours in the last few months. Just toured the Maritimes with my duo, Bridge and Wolak, that you'll be seeing next. And we did 12 concerts without actually being there. It was fantastic. We pre-recorded the video in Kingston at the Isabel Bader Center for Performing Arts this summer, and then it was aired. And we met some people. We met some school groups live on Zoom. And with tonight as well, this being a virtual event, I've been to many events of the Massey College Music Club, but this one will be permanent because of the video, and I think that's one of the great advantages, actually, about this time. It's not all disadvantages, so I'm very happy to be, again, with you here tonight. Next, I want to talk about the slightly embarrassing phenomenon of great composers, and there are several, who have written for the accordion only once and never approached it again. So this is, again, getting a little historical. However, I do want to just allude to the fact that this is part of what I believe contributed to what I said earlier about the lack of artistic development. For example, Tchaikovsky, who wrote for accordion in the year 1883. He was the first big-name classical composer to do so. And in his orchestral suite number 2, which is a long full-length work, it's almost a symphony. In one of the middle movements, he included a part for 4 accordions, as if you would have 4 French horns in the orchestra, and it lasts about 45 seconds. Maybe it's a minute, depending on the tempo, and it's 2 chords. You play like C major, C major, C major, C major, G major, G major, G major, G major. So it's an extremely elementary level accordion part. It was not a serious use of the instrument, and I'm sorry to say that because Tchaikovsky is one of my favorite composers. And I've even done his 1812 overture on digital accordion, but unfortunately his writing for the accordion, he just didn't know what it could do, and the instruments available at the time were not what they are today. Charles Ives wrote and also a number 2, orchestral set number 2 in 1915. And Ives is a very, very, very different composer from Tchaikovsky. And he included a part for 1 accordion in that suite, and it is used quite a bit more. He includes some very high drones, kind of like a dentist drill that won't get out of your head all the way through the piece. But it is a prominent feature for the accordion, but again, he only did that once. And then Paul Hindemith, 2 Pauls, Paul Hindemith and Paul Creston, also wrote for the accordion. Hindemith, one of my very favorite earlier works for accordion, composed in 1922, his Kammermusik number 1 that I had the chance to play with the Royal Conservatory Contemporary Music Ensemble a couple years ago. It's a really great piece for the accordion. In fact, he really understood how to get inside the instrument and to make it in such a way that it was really well designed for the instrument. Extremely successful. Unfortunately, he was not pleased with the performer at the premiere and did not like how it sounded on accordion. So despite the fact that I think he wrote a great part and wish he had written quite a bit more, he only wrote once. And finally, Paul Creston, who in the late 50s, early 60s was one of the biggest names in music in the USA. He's sort of been left out of the canon now, didn't really make it in. to the typical repertoire. But he wrote for accordion. He was commissioned twice by the American Accordion Association. He wrote a solo piece and he wrote a concerto. I played the concerto a couple years ago at the University of Toronto with the U of T Symphony Orchestra. And it's a really good piece. However, you'll recall from earlier, I mentioned that free bass is the essential quality that gives you artistic freedom on the accordion because you have full range on both sides. Because the accordion was meant to be sold to as many students as possible, he was not told about free bass. He was not given the option of writing for free bass. And he wrote for the preset Stradella basses and did a good job at that, except it was a limited instrument that he was writing for. And when he found out that there was such a more wonderful instrument available to be writing for, and that he had been denied this opportunity, he was not amenable to writing for it again. So those are 4 examples which I give that were early attempts at getting the accordion into symphonic culture or into large-scale compositions. And with various levels of success, they made it or they didn't make it, more so in those cases. And it slowly picked up after that. Starting in the 1960s, an incredible wealth of pieces started to be composed for the accordion. Even before, Ole Schmidt wrote amazing works, and then it really picked up in the decades following with Finnish composers, composers from the Balkans, from Denmark, from Russia, a huge repertoire from the USSR and from Russia, including Sofia Gubaidulina, who is one of the most prominent and most amazing composers still alive today. She's up there in years, however, is still writing and has written now about 15 works for accordionists internationally and writes some of the most mind-blowing music for accordion. Hosokawa from Japan writes also for accordion in his extremely minimalist style. I've played some of those works, and it's amazing what he has done for the instrument to view it in a different light. So things have changed dramatically. And now people are also embracing a new genre, which was not seen as a very positive thing for quite a while, which is the genre of transcription. And transcription is a very old phenomenon. Liszt, Paganini, all the great virtuosi of the 19th century and before were renowned for their ability to adapt pieces to their instruments. I think, Hannah, you might know this better than I do. Probably half of Liszt's output were arrangements or transcriptions from other instruments.
Yeah, and I think it was the way for a lot of people to experience orchestral works, for example, without recordings in the 19th century. You could play piano transcriptions. These were published and made available for people to play at home. So yeah,
exactly. And it was the thing to do, right? To invite your friends over to your parlor, serve some wine, play some symphonies.
Yeah, exactly.
But actually play them.
Yes, actually play them on the piano.
What a time, hey?
Yeah.
And now we have Spotify.
Exactly. Just stream those excerpts even of symphonies, we can have the sound of orchestras in our living rooms. Yeah.
Well, if anyone wants to test their skills during lockdown, this is all out there. Those pieces still exist. You can go to your music store or order them and be playing symphonies yourself. Almost all of them have been reduced to a solo performer. So I got into the genre of transcription years ago. I think mostly due to, partly through playing solo accordion pieces and some very good transcriptions that are out there, but also through performing with my ensembles. Bridge and Wolak and La Dame Ensemble. And during my now 10 years at the University of Toronto, my professor, Joseph Massarolo, has pushed me to play original music for the accordion, because we're trying to grow the repertoire and to play with other instruments as much as possible, and to learn how to do that, and to figure out, what do you do with accordion when you're playing with a brass quintet? Or what do you do when you play with cello, or any number of situations? So that push to play with other instruments that he imposed upon me in my first year of undergrad led to me joining these two groups, or joining one, founding the other. And we've done a lot of original music, but we've also done a lot of transcription, and tried to put our original stamp on many pieces of music, because we are, in both cases, unique instrumentations in the groups. So I'd like to roll another video for you right now, and allow you to hear some wonderful Baroque music. This is the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, and it is called the Gavotte. It is a gavotte. It's a movement from the violin partita number 3 in E major. And here it comes with my duo with the fabulous clarinetist Cornel Volak, clarinet professor at Queen's University on clarinet, and myself doing our own arrangement of an expanded part for this Bach partita. I hope everybody found that very soothing. I love that piece. It's very, very fun to play. And if you enjoyed it, please go and have a look on the CBC Music YouTube channel. There's more than just that. We played 3 movements from the suite, and you can find them all there on CBC Music channel or on CBC Music Facebook as well. So now I'd like to switch gears to digital accordion. And I would like very much to show you how this futuristic accordion works. So just let me give you a little bit of sound from it, so that you can sort of get it in your head. That's one type of sound it can make, or it can make this. Or it could make this type of crazy sound, like this. Or I can imitate the sound of an entire orchestra. So this instrument allows me to play the sounds of many instruments at once, but it's a computerized accordion. There are no moving parts inside of it, whereas your computer at home has a keyboard and a mouse or trackpad to input data. This has bellows and 2 keyboards that are just sensing what I do, and it's creating all the sounds based on that. So one essential difference between this and an acoustic accordion in terms of the fundamental nature of what it can do for a performer is that on acoustic accordion, all the sounds are generated with bellows pressure. So how hard you pull or push determines how loud or soft it is. On digital accordion, I have a pressure sensor inside the bellows, so I am able to swell and to get louder inside of a note during the note because I can swell with the bellows. But I'm also able to play certain sounds with finger velocity because there are pressure sensors under every single button on this instrument. So I can do this and change the type of sound or the volume of sound that you're hearing without actually doing anything with the bellows. Now, those 2 different types of data input mean that I can control multiple instruments at once, relatively independently in terms of their volume. So, so here, if I play, sorry, just a little bug on the screen. There we go. It's all fixed. So if I play with my hand, I can make it louder. If I make it, if I swell with the bellows, I can make it louder that way. So I can fade the accordion in and out as I play with my fingers. And I can control two instruments more or less separately, which is a great privilege and a great pleasure. And then on the left hand, I can do quite a bit of percussion and drums. So if I'm very gentle with my fingers on the keys, all you'll hear is the bass line. But if I start to actually hit harder on the buttons themselves, the pressure sensitivity in the buttons senses how hard I hit and responds accordingly. And I have some set up here where there are some drum sounds on the basses and chords. Tequila. So this instrument can basically do anything that you can imagine and that you program it to do. I have a little screen here on the top. There you go. You can see that. And that's how, so that I can see which sounds are active right now. And actually, this accordion has allowed me to do a whole new type of business model during this closure. I've actually gotten into programming sounds because I've spent the last 5 or 7 years making sounds for this accordion. And now I can easily export them. I can load my settings. Basically, I can load my accordion onto a memory stick, and I can plug it into a different accordion and import my settings just like that. And then magically that accordion responds and feels exactly like this one because it imports all my settings, all my parameters, all my sounds. And I've gotten into a new business venture, actually selling programming as a side business to other digital accordionists. And I've made available a suite of user programs, as they are called, which are available for purchase. And that is something that would have been inconceivable to all of those accordionists I mentioned earlier who were, touring all over the place, playing small instruments, developing their technique on various keyboards and refining what they were doing. It's amazing how technology has changed what an instrument is and what it can be, actually. So I'd like to share with you one more piece of music in this presentation. This is, again, my duo Bridge and Volak. However, in contrast to the previous piece where I played my acoustic accordion, this one is on the digital. And we got special permission to be able to air this clip for you. You won't find it anywhere online. It's from a full-length video that we recorded this summer at Queen's University in Kingston. It's an hour-long show, and I'm just going to show you 3 minutes from a Bulgarian piece called Gankino Oro, and everything that you're going to hear is 100% live. Including the swell sounds that I'm sustaining, all the percussion sounds. In the case of this piece, I'll actually play with my right hand. And you can hear how it all comes together into a final package. So here it is, Gankino Oro, or part of it, by my duo Bridge and Volak. there you have it, the incredibly energetic ending from Gan Kino Oro, which is just a simple folk tune, but we expanded it. Our full version is about 8 minutes now. It gets longer every year, actually. We used to play it in 3 minutes, and we just keep adding sections. But that's the beauty. It's evolving, and it's alive, and we're trying to adapt it for our instruments. So I'm basically, I'd like to invite the audience, or I know Hannah, we were just talking behind the scenes, has some questions. I think there's some audience questions as well that I would love to hear.
All right. Well, I see this question has come up, so I'm going to tell you. It's so this is from Harriet Binkley, and she asks, how do you stop others from copying and reselling your memory sticks?
Hello, Harriet. I can see that you've thought of a business model already. Quite true. The answer is that there is no way that I can stop that from happening, like completely clamp down and stop it from happening, because the files that work in a digital accordion were they're open. I can't password protect them. So my answer to that, and my warning, if anybody's listening to this who's considering doing that, either now or in the future, is that I spent a lot of time developing these sounds, and I know them better than I don't know what. And I would definitely be able to identify my own sounds and my programming by ear. So I suppose that's my insurance policies, that I can say to people, well, you are not a purchaser of these sounds, yet I can hear that you're using them. So maybe we need to have a little talk about that. That would be the only way, to be perfectly honest, that I could recuperate anything. But I think I don't want to make threats. I think most accordionists are quite honest, and I sell them for a fairly economical price. It's not a huge business venture for me. It's just something that I want to do to help the digital accordion part of the world be able to move forward. Yeah, thank you for that question.
I have another question from Charles Kozina. Oh, no, Kozins, sorry.
Oh, hello.
Kozins. He says, wonderful presentation, Michael. In your experience, has there ever been an attempt to create a bellows system that provide independent airflow for both right hand and left hand manuals?
Oh, that's a good one. Because the big limit on a typical accordion is that the bellows, one set of bellows supplies both sides. So if you swell with the bellows, both hands get louder. And sometimes you don't want to do that. So yes, I have seen instruments that have attempted to do that had one central division down the center of the bellows that needs to be anchored somehow. I've seen two versions of this, one where it's attached to the floor and one where it's attached to the belt. And I think, and I have not tried to play either, but they didn't become popular. I don't think they worked well. It's very hard to do that. So what I have done, and some people may be interested, I know Charles is an accordionist himself and an incredibly accomplished one. There are a lot of tricks that he might have heard of that I've been learning from my teacher at University of Toronto, Joe Massarolo, for the past decade. And that's a whole other topic, but tricks of how to make one hand appear to be louder than the other by holding maybe the top note of a chord for slightly longer so that it rings in the ear and you sort of create your own reverb and it stays in the ear. Or a twist of the instrument in order to both visually and sonically make the attention go that way, or slightly hitting harder with the fingers to bring out that aspect of the music. So on accordion, we use all these tricks, but no, there has never been a very good version of an instrument that separated the volume controls for both.
We have another question here. This person wrote, you touched on this, but what do you think the real reason is why the accordion declined in popularity after the 60s? Can you explain what the effect of the business outpacing the art was?
It's hard to say, and I'm not trying to dodge the question. It's just that it was such a big environment and a big business. The accordion was not accepted into rock and roll music. It just didn't happen. I can't tell you why. It didn't go into that pop music. It simply may be as simple as guitar was more appropriate in terms of generating a sound for that. That's not to say accordionists didn't try. The American Accordionist Association created a whole line of accordions called Tiger accordions, which had a different reed design, which allowed you to actually bend the note more so as you were playing. They thought it was more bluesy, and the keyboard was sort of curved over to the body to look more cool. It was meant to be the blues or the rock accordion. They were marketed, they were sold, just not enough to overtake the decline at that era. So it's a deep topic, but unfortunately, I don't have a complete answer for you.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael, for this fantastic showcase about the accordion and its history. I'm sure I'm thinking of questions now to ask, but hopefully we can find a way to contact you and also watch you in performance in your virtual concerts, and one day, hopefully live again. And on behalf of the Music Club Committee, thank you also to the production team. It's fantastic that we are able to do this event still virtually. And thank you to all of you who have joined us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this event. I remind you that the next event is on November 3rd, featuring hip-hop music specialist Dalton Higgins, who will talk about the impressive history of hip-hop music and the significant and expanding influence of the genre on culture today. So thank you, everyone.
And if I may, if you want to get in touch with me, the best way is through social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, lots of videos on YouTube, and you can find those there. You can get in touch with me through online mechanisms, and I hope to hear from some of you. And please follow me on those platforms, and hope to connect with you there. Thank you again to Massey College. Thank you, Hannah, for having me.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Good night.